So chatbots like ChatGPT and Google Bard have made life a lot easier for a lot of professionals, including some chiropractors. Hey, it's Tim from ChiroUp, and I wanted to give you a quick overview of the things that ChatGPT might be able to do for you. This is a sampling. By no means is it a comprehensive overview, but whether you're a brand new user or a veteran user, I'll try to give you some tips that you can use to put into your practice right away. First of all, you'll need an account. That's easy. You're going to search ChatGPT or Google Bard. If you do ChatGPT, you'll find the OpenAI website. Click on Introducing ChatGPT, click on Sign Up, and at that point in time, simply an email address followed by a password, or you can log in with Google. That's it. Once you get into the platform, it's pretty intuitive. It looks like this. It'll give you some samples of the types of things that it can do. You'll see this flashing message bar down here. That's called the prompt bar, and that's where you're going to give ChatGPT its command for what you'd like it to do. It's going to always start with a new chat, so that's going to be open right off the bat. If you change topics, you're going to want to hit the new chat button, because then it'll keep all of those in a string, much like these file folders I have here that I've prepared in advance to help make this demo a little quicker. But to show you how it generates text, let's start with our first question. ChatGPT is really good at answering questions, so let's imagine we want to ask it, will using CBD cause you to fail a drug test? It's a question that I had from a patient. When I click that button, ChatGPT is going to generate an answer, and it generates answers word by word. Now, we need to recognize that ChatGPT is not an authoritative source necessarily, but it will give us some very good ideas about where to begin. So we'll see what we need to think about in that case. And it did give me some good ideas that then I could follow up on to make sure that was accurate information. Don't forget, if it's something that's really important, especially clinically oriented, always cross-check that information, especially with regard to technical content, the things that you and I deal with, because ChatGPT is not a physician, it's not a lawyer, but it is a good information warehouse. Let's look at something else we might take a look. Let's imagine we want to know what's the current best practice management for rotator cuff. So we type that in. What are the best practices? It's going to come up with some answers. Now, because this is a technical and nuanced subject, it's not perfect. It talks about things like NSAIDs and steroids. We know those aren't best practices for managing rotator cuff tendinopathy. But it also brings up some good ideas as far as shockwave therapy or PRP, home exercise, and self-care. So depending upon what you ask it, you may have a great answer or you might have an average answer. The good news is it's not going to replace you, but it can certainly help you along the way. If you don't like the answer, you can hit this regenerate response button, and what's going to happen is it's going to give it a second try or a third try or as many tries as you want it. Now, ChatGPT can also be a virtual tutor. Let's imagine that you need to know how to make your hard drive quicker or your computer faster at work because it's just not working the way that it should. So ask, what's the best way to improve a computer's speed? It'll tell you how to do that. It'll give you a step-by-step process of exactly how that might happen. Now, the second query that I asked it in this regard was, make that for a Mac, because that's what we're using at the office. And so now it makes it specific to a Mac. The nice thing is that you can refine the query an infinite number of times to make it more and more specific to exactly what you're looking for. It can also be a virtual assistant. When I was writing the accompanying blog with this article, I needed a glossary about terms related to artificial intelligence and large language models and ChatGPT. I wanted definitions in case the readers wanted to see what are those things that you're talking about. So instantly, ChatGPT creates a glossary for me. Now, the second prompt that I dropped in there was make that in alphabetical order because I wanted to make it a little bit more readable. So it rearranges that in alphabetical order. It was really nice. ChatGPT is great for writing or refining correspondences. Let's imagine that someone asked you to sponsor their baseball team. You've probably heard that, so you can either say yes or no or respond to that via an email, but that's going to take you 5 or 10 minutes. Not with a chatbot. Just say write a short, friendly email to decline an invitation to sponsor a baseball team. And here it is. Here's an email that you'd probably be proud to send out to that person. It answers it in a really pleasant way. And I could say then make that shorter because I want that to be a handwritten note, and it'll shorten it, or include my business name, Premier Rehab, and it'll drop that Premier Rehab right into that, blending it in. Now let's say that you have a stubborn employee, I've got one, and I'm writing him an email to say it's time that you start showing up on time. But because of my irritable attitude toward this employee, my email didn't sound exactly like what I wanted it to. The good news is I can simply copy this information. I can go back into ChatGPT, and then I can ask ChatGPT to make this significantly more friendly but firm, and then drop in that initial nasty email. And what happens is it spits out a new version that is significantly more friendly. One of the things that I love ChatGPT for is to give it a sentence or a paragraph and say, write this better or make this better. And it does it really well. It also does things more clinically oriented, like helping you brainstorm. No, it's not going to replace you. But I had a patient who came in last week and they had some concerning symptoms. And I asked ChatGPT what could cause progressive forearm extensor weakness and stiffness, muscle fasciculations, and neck discomfort. I had a couple of ideas, but ChatGPT had a whole bunch of ideas along the way, which then helps me define what tests might I need to perform in order to narrow that down. It's like having a virtual assistant by your side. I love it for the brainstorming component. One thing you'll need to be certain of is to make sure not to drop in any PHI, because ChatGPT is not HIPAA compliant. In fact, unless you have a certified HIPAA compliant platform, you want to make sure that you've always scrubbed it for any patient data. The other thing that it can do is help you write policies and procedures. I asked it to help write a missed appointment policy for a chiropractic office, and it came up with a pretty good version of that. My second prompt for that was to make that specific to Premier Rehab, which then incorporated our clinic name into all of the pieces that we wanted it incorporated. That was really nice. You can even have it make forms like this one is create a new client intake form for a massage therapist. And it comes up with all of the fields that might be appropriate with that form. It also comes up with a question. Now, it had a little bit of a challenge numbering. It numbered them all 1, but it had some great questions, even had a signature line down at the bottom. I was impressed by that. Again, don't forget, ChatGPT is not an attorney. It is not to replace good legal advice in the same way that it's not going to replace good medical advice, but it can certainly add to that advice. The other thing that I like to do is to help it generate content by saying, write this better for articles or blogs. I found that if you ask it to write an entire article or an entire blog, it's not very good. It turns out pretty generic. But if you take a small piece that you've already written, it will absolutely write it better. Some people have a concern that will that impact SEO, because Google's vice president said several months ago that if you use artificial intelligence, they're going to ding you in search engine rankings. Well, they've later rescinded that and said, no, we're not going to ding you for using a tool that everyone is going to be using, as long as you're not using it for nefarious purposes like solely boosting SEO with keyword stuffing and those sort of things. One of the things that I found it particularly useful for is to dump in my blog and then say, write an appealing headline for this article, or write some hashtags for this social media post. With the subsequent prompts, you can ask it to write it for a 5th grader. You could ask it to write it for a college student so that it's something that can be dumbed up or smartened up, either way. And it's really good at summarizing written content, like this article that I dumped into it. If I scroll up, you'll see it's a huge article, so I won't go through the whole thing, but I asked it to summarize that article, and ChatGPT came up with a really good summary of that article that now I can decide, do I want to read that entire article? So rather than reading a whole PDF or a whole journal, we can summarize it all really quickly now. So chatbots are becoming increasingly more popular and prevalent tools, including in chiropractic offices. They offer tremendous convenience. You've seen just a tiny sampling of the types of things that they can draw from their information pools. There are concerns about accuracy and being able to write with nuanced language, concerns about HIPAA compliance, and so we need to make sure that we navigate around those. I'd encourage you to check out the associated blog for our tips on how to do that. And I'd encourage you to email me, Tim at ChiroUp, with any ideas about how you use chatbots to improve your practice. Thanks for watching.